It has been 2 weeks since the iPhone 17 Pro Max hit the shelves, and the internet has already moved through every possible opinion about it. Some say it's revolutionary. Some call it the same phone again. Others insist that Apple finally got lazy. But after living with this phone every single day, the truth feels very different. The story of the iPhone 17 Pro Max is not about flashy AI features or gimmicky upgrades. It's about Apple quietly fixing the things that actually matter in real life. And it's about everyone, including the loudest critics, missing that point completely. Last year, the world couldn't stop talking about Apple Intelligence. Every review, every ad, every event was filled with the word AI. Apple tried to sell the iPhone 16 Pro as a leap into the future, powered by artificial intelligence. But that marketing wave didn't just fail, it backfired. Most users never saw those features arrive. Many were delayed or half-finished. And people realized that AI wasn't what made a phone great. What mattered was how it felt to use day after day. So when Apple launched the iPhone 17 Pro Max this year and barely mentioned AI at all, people were confused. Why so quiet? Why hold back? But that silence was the smartest move Apple could have made. Because this time, the product speaks for itself. There's a reason sales shot up. There's a reason people are upgrading in record numbers. And that reason has nothing to do with software gimmicks. It's about 5 simple factors that change how the phone feels: design, everyday usability, performance, battery, and long-term value. Let's start with design, the first thing you notice the moment you see it. Apple hasn't truly changed the look of its Pro models since the iPhone X back in 2017. For almost a decade, the same camera block sat in the same corner, with only tiny differences each year. You could line up an iPhone 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 Pro, and they'd look like the same device at a glance. That familiarity had turned into fatigue. People were ready for something new. The 17 Pro Max delivers exactly that. For the first time in years, it looks and feels like a brand new iPhone. The entire back has been redesigned with what Apple calls the camera plateau, a raised glass platform that merges smoothly with the rest of the rear. Instead of 3 cameras popping out like separate eyes, the 17 Pro Max presents a single unified glass window that covers them all. The look is cleaner, more modern, and instantly recognizable. You don't even need to see the Apple logo to know it's the new model. And that matters, not because of vanity, but because people upgrade to feel that difference. If the phone looks identical to last year's, it never feels new, no matter how many features are inside. The new design also feels better in hand. The edges are softer, the body slightly lighter, and the aluminum unibody distributes weight evenly. It may sound small, but the change affects how you interact with the phone hundreds of times a day. It feels less like a slab of metal and more like an object designed to live in your palm. That emotional connection, that sense that you're holding something genuinely new, is what most reviews ignore, yet it's one of the biggest reasons people upgrade. The 17 Pro Max reminds users why design still matters. But design is just the start. A new phone isn't worth it unless the upgrades are visible in daily life. That brings us to the second key reason the 17 Pro Max stands out: practical usability. Small changes that actually change the experience. The new anti-reflective display coating is one of those under-the-radar improvements that you don't notice until you've lived with it. Reflections used to be one of the biggest frustrations on iPhones. In bright light, the screen often turned into a mirror. You had to tilt it, shield it with your hand, or crank up the brightness. With the new coating, that problem almost disappears. You can finally read messages, browse, or watch videos outdoors without squinting. Even under harsh sunlight, text stays visible. It's the kind of feature that doesn't make headlines, but changes your day quietly every time you use your phone. Then there's the jump to 3,000 nits of peak brightness, a first for any iPhone. That number might sound technical, but in practice, it means this: automatic brightness finally works properly. You can walk outside, and the phone instantly adjusts without dimming your content. It's smooth, instant, and bright enough to use anywhere. For years, users had to manually tweak brightness in sunlight. With the 17 Pro Max, you can forget about it completely. It just works, and that's what premium devices should do. The front camera also got one of the biggest updates in years, now an 18-megapixel sensor with center stage framing. The wide field of view changes everything. Selfies fit more people, and group shots no longer require someone to stretch their arm awkwardly. Landscape selfies, video calls, and vlogs all feel more natural because you see more of your surroundings. It sounds like a small tweak, but it transforms how front-facing photos look. You stop worrying about framing and start focusing on moments. That's what technology should feel like. Invisible help that makes your life easier. Charging speed is another upgrade that finally catches up with expectations. Wired charging now takes the battery from 0 to 50% in about 20 minutes, compared to 35 minutes on last year's model. Wireless charging also got a serious boost, 25 watts over MagSafe, even with third-party chargers. That's thanks to a completely redesigned vapor chamber cooling system. It spreads heat across the aluminum frame, keeping temperatures stable while charging or gaming. In simple terms, the phone doesn't get uncomfortably hot anymore. You can plug it in, play games, or stream video, and it stays cool. It's a small technical victory that makes the whole device feel more reliable. That same cooling system unlocks the full power of the new A19 Pro chip. Benchmarks will tell you it's faster, but what really matters is consistency. Last year's iPhones could hit high frame rates, but only for a few minutes before throttling down. The 17 Pro Max holds that performance steady. In gaming tests, it maintains around 95% of its top speed, compared to 80% on the 16 Pro Max. That difference is enormous when you're actually using the phone. Games stay smooth. Apps load instantly. The system feels calm and responsive no matter how long you push it. Performance isn't just about power, it's about control. And for the first time, Apple's hardware and cooling system work together perfectly to achieve that. Real-world gaming results prove it. In demanding titles like Genshin Impact, the frame rate stays near 120 FPS without overheating. The phone's body remains cool to the touch. You no longer need to pause a session or worry about temperature warnings. This is what the A19 Pro chip was designed for. Not flashy AI demos, but sustained power under real pressure. It feels like the first time Apple truly optimized its chips for endurance, not just benchmarks. And all that efficiency carries over into battery life. The 17 Pro Max lasts so long that you almost forget it's running. You can leave home in the morning, spend the whole day filming, gaming, browsing, and still come back with charge to spare. That peace of mind changes how you use your phone. You stop thinking about battery percentage. You stop carrying portable chargers. You simply live with it. Apple hasn't just improved capacity, it's improved trust. You trust that the phone will last. And that's one of the most valuable upgrades of all. Even the speakers have quietly improved. They're louder, fuller, and more balanced. Watching content feels richer, more cinematic. It's not something most people upgrade for, but once you hear it, you notice. It adds to the sense that the 17 Pro Max is refined in every area that matters. Apple didn't reinvent anything. They just perfected the basics. So far, we've seen how the design feels new, how the features fix real problems, and how performance finally delivers what it promises. But the biggest surprise is what Apple didn't do. They didn't drown the launch in marketing buzzwords. They didn't pretend AI was the next revolution. They didn't invent new buttons or half-baked gestures. Instead, they doubled down on fundamentals, and that honesty is refreshing. It's why more people are upgrading this year. They see that Apple focused on substance, not slogans. Every generation of iPhone used to have one headline feature: Face ID, Dynamic Island, or promotion. But users have learned to see through one-trick upgrades. What people want now is a phone that feels complete. The 17 Pro Max finally reaches that balance. A strong design, durable hardware, noticeable usability changes, and real endurance. Nothing experimental, nothing overhyped. Just the iPhone perfected. When you look back, it's easy to see why everyone got it wrong. Reviewers expected Apple to chase AI trends. Analysts expected a boring year. Critics expected minimal change. But Apple did something far more strategic. They redefined what progress means. Not by adding more features, but by refining what already works until it feels effortless. That's the essence of good design: invisibility. You stop noticing the phone and start noticing how smoothly everything fits into your day. And that's where the real shift happens. After 2 weeks with the iPhone 17 Pro Max, you realize that innovation isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It's in the lack of frustration when you use your device. It's in the comfort of a battery that lasts. It's in the cool temperature during a long call. It's in the brightness of a screen that adjusts perfectly every time. These are not headline features. They're the foundations that make everything else better. This brings us to the final takeaway of this first section. The iPhone 17 Pro Max is not a phone that tries to impress you on day one. It's a phone that earns your respect over time. The more you use it, the more you notice how smooth, thoughtful, and reliable it is. It's an upgrade built for real life, not for spec sheets or launch events. Apple didn't reinvent the wheel. They just made it roll without a single bump. And that's why everyone was wrong. They looked for the big, flashy revolution. But the real story was quiet perfection, a device that doesn't scream for attention, yet delivers everything you actually need better than ever before. As we move into the next section, we'll explore what this quiet revolution means for Apple's entire strategy. How a company once obsessed with marketing learned to step back, listen, and let the product speak. How skipping gimmicks and keeping the price steady turned a predictable upgrade into a record-breaking success. Because if Section 1 showed how Apple fixed the iPhone, Section 2 will show how Apple fixed its image by finally learning that honesty sells better than hype. What happened with the iPhone 17 Pro Max isn't just about a few hardware tweaks. It's about Apple quietly rewriting how it sells progress. For years, the company's story was built on spectacle. The big stage, the big slogans, the big one more thing. But this time, something changed. Apple went silent. No fireworks, no buzzword storm, no AI will change your life narrative. And that silence did what years of shouting could not. It made people listen again. Let's start with the first shift: marketing honesty. Last year, Apple bet everything on Apple Intelligence. They promised smarter apps, generative tools, a whole new way of using your phone. Then the rollout stumbled. Features were delayed, regions were excluded, and most users never saw the promised magic. It became clear that Apple had overpromised. So this year, they did the opposite. The 17 Pro Max launch avoided every empty claim. Instead of saying the future of intelligence, Apple simply said, our best iPhone yet. Simple, almost boring. But it worked because it was true. The absence of hype felt refreshing. After years of scripted excitement, people wanted authenticity. Apple's quiet confidence sent a new message. We don't need to convince you. You'll feel it yourself. That is powerful marketing, not by exaggeration, but by restraint. And the numbers prove it. More people upgraded to the 17 Pro Max than to any Pro model in the last 5 years. When you remove the noise, trust comes back. The second big change was Apple's decision to stop chasing gimmicks. Remember the camera control button on the 16 Pro? It was supposed to make photography faster, but it ended up confusing people. Half the time, it triggered at the wrong moment or got disabled altogether. It became a symbol of forced innovation, a feature built for the press release, not for the user. Apple learned from that mistake. The 17 Pro Max drops the idea completely. No unnecessary buttons, no new gestures to remember. Just a clean device that works exactly as expected. The only borderline gimmick this year is dual video recording, where you can film from 2 lenses at once. Even that feels different. Apple didn't market it as the main reason to buy the phone. They treated it like an optional tool. Fun if you use it, invisible if you don't. That balance is what keeps the experience focused. Instead of forcing new habits, Apple lets users choose their own pace. By removing these distractions, Apple rediscovered something it had nearly forgotten: functional simplicity. A premium phone doesn't need to overwhelm. It just needs to remove friction. The smoother every interaction becomes, the more the device fades into the background, and the more users appreciate it. Now, let's talk about value. For years, Apple had been slowly raising prices with every generation. New camera price bump, new chip another bump. It reached a point where even loyal fans hesitated. But with the iPhone 17 Pro Max, Apple broke that pattern. Despite the huge redesign and improved internals, the price stayed exactly the same as last year's. That single decision changed how people saw the brand. Holding the price steady told customers, "We've added value without asking for more." It signaled confidence, not desperation, and it restored a sense of fairness. Because when people feel they're getting a better product for the same cost, they don't just buy, they trust. That trust is worth more than any new feature. It turns buyers into believers. Value isn't always about cost. It's about the feeling that what you paid for was respected. Apple's restraint, in pricing and in marketing, finally aligned with what customers wanted. The result was simple. People stopped asking, "Is it worth it?" and started saying, "It feels worth it." The fourth big factor is future-proofing. Whenever Apple makes a major design shift, that look usually lasts for years. Think back to 2017, when the iPhone X introduced the edge-to-edge screen and notch. That design stayed relevant until 2022. Or the triple camera square from the iPhone 11, which survived until this generation. These long cycles mean one thing. If you buy during a redesign year, your phone will look current for the next 3 to 5 years. The 17 Pro Max is one of those landmark redesigns. Its camera plateau and unified glass window mark a new era of how the iPhone looks. That makes it a smart investment. Even 2 or 3 years from now, it will still feel like the new iPhone, while the next few models will likely reuse this same body. Apple knows that perception drives longevity. A device that stays visually fresh keeps its resale value high and its owner satisfied longer. That's what real future-proofing means, not just faster chips, but slower aging. Of course, there's always the curiosity about what's next. Rumors say Apple is preparing its first foldable model, maybe next year. If that happens, it'll target a completely different audience, early adopters willing to pay a premium for novelty. But for most people, the 17 Pro Max will remain the flagship to own. It offers stability, endurance, and a design that won't feel outdated anytime soon. Now we arrive at the only real controversy of this phone, the return to aluminum. Apple's switch away from titanium sparked debate. Titanium was heavier but felt luxurious. Aluminum is lighter but slightly less premium. In hand, the difference is immediate. The 17 Pro Max feels airier, more balanced, but also more slippery. Drop it once on tile, and you'll see small scuffs on the edges. That's the trade-off Apple made. Comfort over toughness at its core. The ZR is Nikon's statement that creativity doesn't have to fit inside old definitions. You don't need to decide whether you're a photographer or a filmmaker before picking up your gear. You could just create. And this mindset explains why the ZR looks and feels the way it does. Nikon built it for the new generation of visual storytellers. People who might shoot a still portrait one moment and a cinematic clip the next, all with the same camera in their hands. That's why it's so compact, so minimal, and yet so capable. It's not trying to replace the flagship cameras like the Z8 or Z9. Instead, it's giving artists another way to express themselves, one that's lighter, faster, and more flexible. And that's also why it attracts photographers, even though it was born as a cinema tool. But let's look closer at how Nikon designed it to fit into this hybrid space. Inside that small body lies a 24-megapixel semi-stacked sensor, one that handles stills and video equally well. The processing engine can handle massive data streams for ProRes RAW or NRAW video, but that same power benefits photography too. It means faster readouts, less rolling shutter, and cleaner performance. The speed at which it processes images allows smoother bursts and consistent color rendering. You can shoot quickly, review instantly, and move on without lag. And the design tells its own story. The absence of an EVF isn't a flaw. It's a deliberate choice. It keeps the camera smaller and lighter, making it easier to carry and mount on rigs. But for photographers, it opens up a new kind of experience. You interact with your environment differently. You don't hide behind the camera, you shoot through it. The bright display becomes a window, not a barrier. It's a subtle shift, but it changes how you see. It's the kind of thing that makes photography feel more intuitive, more spontaneous. For those who've used cameras like the Sony FX3 or Panasonic S9, the ZR fits into that same hybrid category. But Nikon's execution feels different. It feels more photographic, not just because of the color science, but because of the handling and the attention to tactile feedback. Every button feels deliberate, every control intuitive. There's a Nikon familiarity to it that gives confidence. And then there's the color science. Nikon's color profile has always been one of its strengths. It captures tones that feel organic, especially skin tones and natural light. But with the ZR, Nikon took things a step further by including new red-labeled picture profiles designed for both video and stills. These profiles lean into cinematic contrast, soft roll-offs, and slightly warmer midtones. They give still images that film-like quality straight out of camera. When you shoot with these profiles, you notice the difference immediately. The images have mood. They don't feel sterile or overly digital. There's depth and emotion in the tones. And even though you can replicate similar results in Lightroom or Capture One, having that look right out of camera changes the experience. It simplifies the process and allows you to focus on composition instead of endless post-processing. Let's talk about how the ZR compares to Nikon's own lineup. On paper, it shares the same sensor size as the Z6 III, but its readout speed and color rendering feel closer to the Z8. It's a strange mix, part mid-range, part high-end, yet it works beautifully. The Z8 and Z9 are powerhouses built for professionals who need speed, resolution, and ruggedness. The Z6 III is the all-rounder for creators. The ZR? It's the creative wild card. It's for people who prioritize expression and experience over specs. And that's the key difference. The ZR feels like it was built for artists rather than engineers. It's not obsessed with checklists or record-breaking numbers. It's designed to inspire. That's why so many photographers who've tried to describe it as fun to use. It's light, it's responsive, and it gets out of the way. You focus on your shot, not your settings. Now, who exactly is the Nikon ZR for? That's an interesting question because it sits in a unique place. If you're a wedding photographer who occasionally shoots video, it makes sense. If you're a travel creator who values portability, it's perfect. If you're a content creator who needs one camera for YouTube, behind the scenes, and photography, it fits the bill. Even hobbyists who just love the joy of taking pictures will find it refreshing.